he led that for 20 years before retiring, and even then to his real job, which is now helping with science and taking all that knowledge from hardcore frontline forecast operations and sharing it with our team at the Center for Weather and Water Streams, and helping us understand where the gaps are in forecasting and observations, how to develop new methods, and how to work with stakeholders to ensure that what we're working on is aimed at the right direction. So that's, I should mention also one other waypoint in Rob's career was as the director of the National Weather Service Office of Technological Development. And in that capacity, we saw all of the forecast centers across the country in the National Weather Service, and also we saw certain stages of the development of the new National Water Center in Alabama. So we're very lucky to have Rob here today to help moderate this very important session. Talking with people who were setting policy and concerned about policy, providing in these challenging times of extremes, particularly drought in the street. So, no further ado, Rob.
Thank you, Marty. I'm a little embarrassed. I meant to say he's a slacker, you know, live up to his potential. We have this first session is because it's not often that we're able to gather together folks from local, state, and regional policy that really shape the direction that we're able to go with some of the scientific endeavors and interests that we have at all those levels. So this is a treat. I hope you're as excited about this as I'm looking forward to learning a lot. It's not often that we get this sort of group together, so please take advantage of that. So our format this morning is we're going to have three speakers. The first is Andy Rossi. Andy is the general manager of the Basin District. And Andy is going to speak for about 15 minutes, and then he has to go to a quarter. So we're going to give you a shot at some questions for Andy before he gets to the off. So Andy, I think you have to go at round.
But I think one of our board members here, so if you can keep them in a seat, I can stay around for a little longer.
Right. And then after Andy, Kelly, when your opinion will be speaking. Kelly's the assistant director for water policy for Colorado Department of Natural Resources, and Kelly has the street, the basin, here as well, and been able to see that transition. So we have local, state, and then following Kelly, we have Chuck Powell. Chuck is the executive director of the Colorado River. So it's a really important post and agency that is navigating some very ticklish issues. And we're going to hear more about that. And so after each of these individuals speak, we'll have a moment for a few questions, but then we'll have time at the end and engage in questions for all of them. So I'm really excited for that. So Andy, if you would go on up, we'll get it started. Please welcome everybody else.
Great. Okay. Bear me with a second. I've got analog and digital form my notes. Right. Can you hear me okay? We do. I have a pretty loud voice. First of all, thank you all for being here. Welcome to the Amber River Basin. My talk will be a little bit two parts. I'd like to just sort of orient everyone where you are in the basin, give you a few facts, and I'm going to build on this concept, maybe a scale that was picked up with Rob, where we can start kind of big and then narrow it down and kind of get down to some of the nitty gritty. And then when I'm done, you guys can pull the cork off that bottle and go back to big scale with Kelly and Chuck. And my apologies to my co-presenters today. You need to go I would love to hear what they have to say. So what they have to say is very important and it's impactful for what we do here. So the other thing I'd like to do is I would like to thank you. I know there's a number of people in the room here who helped us out with our first ever youth water festival yesterday at the Haiti Brown County Fairgrounds. It was awesome. It was spectacular. Everybody who helped us out, thank you so much. It's super important. If anybody in here has not talked to a fifth grader in a while, do it. It'll be one of the best things you've done all week, all year. Okay, please do it. They're great people, they're great people.
How many fifth graders were there?
We had over 400, is that right, Bob?
415.
Yeah, 450. And for the human perspective, when's the last time you could talk to a human who's equally excited about soggy Doritos and the difference between potential and kinetic energy? So thank you for all that. That was great. So welcome to the info. Where are we? We're in the Amber Basin. A lot of you have seen this map before of the Colorado River Basin. And the Yampa Basin is a small part way up there in the corner, northwest Colorado. We are tributary to the Colorado River through the Green River. In Colorado, we're right up there in the corner. You can see there we're what's referred to as the Yampa Light Green Basin. That's how Colorado thinks of it. That's how the state of Colorado, the Division of Water Resources, breaks up the management of the water resources in Colorado. You can see that we are part of, along with the Colorado River Basin, the Gunnison, and San Juan Dolores. These are what make up Colorado's portion in Colorado rivers. The other basins flow out of Colorado, but in different states. So those of you who probably drove through, may have gone through some of the Colorado Basin or the North Platte. Our divide over here up in Rat Ears and Zirkles, the other side of that is the North Platte, and that goes into Wyoming first. So the river itself, the Yampa River, is about 250 miles long, and it starts way out here in the Flat Tops Wilderness, actually in a different county, in Garfield County, up above the county of Yampa. And it flows 250 miles all the way down to the confluence with the Green River. And the confluence of the Green River is in Dinosaur National Monument. So that's the full extent of the river. Topography wise, the elevations here around 14ers in our basin. I think our tallest mountain is Mount Zirkle, it's over 12,000. And down, I think the confluence at Echo Park is probably 5,000, to kind of give you a sense of what we're looking at. And this is what it looks like. Picture on your left is actually the top of the watershed. That's Yampa Reservoir in the foreground, and a couple more. That's Flat Top Wilderness, so that's where everything starts. And that is Echo Park right there on the right. That is the confluence with the Green River. The confluence is on sort of the right side behind that big rock outcrop. So you can see we run the full gamut of western landscapes here. We go from high alpine, pristine sort of national forest, all the way down to a fully desert river. And the changes along the way, you can see in pretty rapid succession. They're accessible, they're easy to get out and see, and they're easy to study and consider. And that location in Echo Park, if anybody has an extra time, please go out there. It's amazing, it's a beautiful spot, but it's also significant because just downstream of there, on the green, there's an important place. And this is where the Yampa starts to play its role in the greater Colorado River. Considerations just downstream the location where, when they were considering extending the Bureau of Reclamation big reservoirs, is where there was a plan for the reservoir right there. We're back water up all the way through what is known as Dinosaur National Monument up into the Yampa. And David Brower and Sierra Club in the early 60s cut the deal to relinquish their protest in opposition to, I believe it was at that point, I don't know, Plain George was already built, was being built, and then also Untitled Chapter. And that's the deal that was struck, and the Yampa was left alone from a big Bureau of Rec facilities. We don't have any of those here. And This is how it play into the greater landscape or the waterscape of what goes on both in the state of Colorado and on the Colorado River. So on the right there, many of you have probably seen those statistics before. 80% of Colorado's water falls on the west slope. 85% of the people are east of the divide. It's been a challenge for the state of Colorado for its entire history. 50% of the water used on the Front Range comes from the west slope. So these other west slope basins, some of them have significant trans-mountain divergence. That's right, taking water from the west slope with pretty sophisticated and large-scale facilities and sending it to the Front Range to the population base. The Yampa does not have any of those whatsoever. We have one smaller, I would call it a trans-basin diversion that brings water and falls into the Colorado down in Interior Creek through what's known as the Stillwater Ditch. We manage in partnership with the ag users up there, but that's it. We have no other water that's being transferred out of our basin, and that's unique for the West Slope. Okay, how do we fit in to the Colorado River? Well, at the top there, the Yampa River watershed is about 3.1% of the Colorado Water River's entire watershed, but at least there, we make up 10% of the flow. Pretty good bang for your buck. If you go further up, the 5th Street Bridge Gauge, which is right down here in downtown Steamboat. If you go there, that's the 5th Street Gauge in Steamboat Springs. It's about 2/10 of the Colorado River watershed, but at least there, that's 2% of the total flow. So as you're moving up in the basin, you're getting a much more efficient sort of delivery of water that goes directly into the Colorado River system. So we're this very small, tiny, almost forgotten, out of the way, no longer forgotten watershed that has a pretty significant impact on what happens in the Colorado River flows. And it dates all the way back to that history that I just referenced with David Roberts. It's significant. It's fascinating stuff. If anyone is interested in history, please read it. It's pretty cool stuff. So, how do we get to this sort of maybe outside significance? Well, if you look at our precipitation patterns on the left here, multicolored map, that is the average annual precipitation across Colorado. You can see way up at the top, the purple stripe. That is the Mount Circle Wilderness. And then that little blue blob that's down below a little bit, that is the Flat Top Wilderness right there. And the outline on the picture on your right is the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District boundary. And you can see sort of the orientation of where we are in the landscape. So you can see as far as Colorado is concerned, outside of maybe Wolf Creek Pass, the circles are just about the wettest place in the state of Colorado. And you can see also in a 250-mile river link, we go from just about the wettest place in Colorado to just almost as dry as anywhere else. We're all the way out at Echo Park. They see under 10 inches of precipitation annually. So a big difference. So we all know about climate change, how we've been doing. That's what we're here to talk about, right? So let's look at our precipitation patterns, some of our most recent. This is a map of the state of Colorado. This is the most recent annual precipitation average right there. You can see it's from 1991 to 2020. We move forward in our reference decade, and you can see on the right, that is actually the annual precipitation track from 1901 to now for Round County itself. So you can see we've got highly variable precipitation, nothing new, didn't be any news for anybody who's studying hydrology and water in the West. But most recently, you can see way over on the right there, that concerning steep blue line. So in the last 5 years, you can see we've had an incredibly sharp decrease in annual precipitation. And this is where Rob should be pulling the mic out on me and saying, I've been studying these trends for my entire career, and your sense of scale and reference is completely off. You're right, and we're going to get to that. So you can look, you can see that decrease, which ended up in, I think it's a 5.4% or 5.4 inch reduction just in Round County. Some of the people in this room recently helped us with a study where we saw in the flat tops that reduction in precipitation When you compare this decade to the previous decade, it's actually a 9.4-inch reduction in annual precipitation. It's pretty dynamic. But you can see what's important is that reduction is well within our historically observed range of precipitation variation, right? So keep that in mind. We have a sharp decrease. It's well within our historic record. Shouldn't be anything concerning, right? No big one. We're going to get to that point in a second. Okay, so what does that mean? Of course, variable precipitation and hydrology means variable river flows. This is the chart. I think the major blue there is the flow at that same gauge this created 1 year and the next. So the top one is 2011 and the bottom one is 2012. Pete Vandecar is right here in the front row. He is, I'm going to give him credit for my inspiration for this slide. He has kayak and gear shop right on the Yampa River. And he likes to reference these 2 years where he went out the back door on the same day 1 year and then the following year. And this is the difference in flows we saw on the same day. So on the same day, in 2011, we had 4,700 CFS. That was about the peak in 2011. The same day in 2012, runoff was done. We had 300 CFS. So that's the type of variability we're seeing at the upper end of the water. That's nothing new. This just happened. So this is where we start to get concerned. Okay, this slide right here, I could talk about this all day, but we won't. We're going to touch on it a little bit. This is the top image you're seeing is the Colorado River Basin Forecast Center's forecast for this year for the inflow into Stagecoach Reservoir. Bottom right, I have the bottom 10 recorded inflows and volumes to this reservoir. So, anyone see a pattern there that might be concerning? We've got a sharp decrease in precipitation that's well within our observed range of behavior for the system that is producing 5 of the lowest 10 inflows that happened in the last 10 years. Again, Rob, if you're jumping up and pulling the mic out and I and saying, Andy, let's be fair. What happened at the other end of the scale? And you're right, at the other end of the scale, in the last 10 years, we had 4 of the biggest inflows into this reservoir. So let's go back to that sharp decline within our observed period of record, the range of it. What's happened? We're observing precipitation that we've seen before that's causing greater variability in the physical representation of our hydrology. That's climate change in action in real time happening over a decade right there. And many people in this room have predicted. This is it. It's already happening. And the reason why I put this modeling forecast up is to make another point. Our existing models aren't nimble enough or flexible enough to keep up with that change. So look at this. This is the forecast into one of the major reservoirs in the Yampa Basin. We've seen this before. And look at the trace. This is the best forecast we have. And this is not to be sort of overly critical of the Basin Forecast Center. If you're here, anybody, I love you guys. You're doing a great job. I'm happy you're looking at these things. And you do a fantastic job at a certain scale. And that scale are those big Euro-bred facilities. They do great. The briefings are amazing. The people who put together the briefings are really fantastic. You get a lot of information. But at our scale, it's not doing very well. Look at that, all the way into May, where we would have been well in the planning for what to do for the water year. The range of possibilities and forecasts, it doesn't even contain what was the reality of what was expressed, which ended up being what is the 3rd lowest inflow in the history of the entire facility. So that's a problem. We need to fix that. We need to jump on that. And we can't wait for other federal agencies, higher modeling agencies to catch up to us. We're going to have to take that responsibility on ourselves. And I'm talking to several people. How can we do better? We've developed some of our own forecasting products, but we can do better, and we're going to keep doing better, and we're going to push out so that we don't have to rely on unreliable forecasts to move forward. Okay, so I'm going a little bit long here, but we're going to talk about storage as well. So this is the basin right here. And as far as storage, we don't have very much. Remember, no large Bureau of Rec facilities. It's my time zone. Guess what? So these are our major reservoirs right here. The Powell Reservoir, Stagecoach, Lake Caddo, Fifth Creek, Steamboat Lake, Elkhead. Total storage is about 100,000 acre feet. To put that in perspective, some of you may drove up here from the Front Range. We're not even maybe half of Lake Dillon if you drove by Lake Dillon, maybe a third to a quarter. That's it. On a statewide scale, look at us. We're about 2% of the total storage in the state of Colorado. Not very much. So here's our challenges and concerns. And this is not an exhaustive list that I'll find, but these are some of the big ones we've been working on. We've got challenges in shifting our system and our thinking on what has been historically a Three River system. We don't go under administration very often. The only part of the basin that goes under administration every year is above Stagecoach revenue. That's it. Every year, the rest of it is sort of a free for all, as we like to say. And ag users don't pay for storage water below Stagecoach reservoir. Think about that in the context of the rest of the state. There's very little storage water used for 7% of the water users in this basin. So, excuse me. Some of the other things there, aging infrastructure. In 2019, DWR said, okay, Three River, you guys are getting away with maybe a little sloppy river measurement. We're going to issue orders. You guys got to fix up your head gates and your measuring devices. In the fall of 2019, 49% of the measuring devices were out of compliance with the state criteria. By 2021, there's still 42% of the measuring devices are out of compliance with state criteria. You're like, well, Andy, it's not a very big base, and what kind of numbers we're talking about? Those numbers, I think I just talked to Aaron Light when I started. It was 1,200 measuring devices in the Yampa River Basin alone that were out of compliance. It's a lot. Okay. The other thing that comes up, junior water rights. We were one of the last basins to develop our water rights. Why? Because we got cut a break with no big Bureau of Rec, and we had a long time to develop and slowly develop our water rights. Some of our water rights are the most junior in the state when you compare them to, say, pre and post compact rights. That's concerning to us. We've got to learn how to navigate new legislative limitations on how we use our water. And we got a plan for changing climates and continued droughts. So some of the solutions we have, and I'm going to go through quickly so we can get to some questions. One is on the shifting system away from the Three River, we've got to engage with the public. We've got to come up with incentives for people to change their practices on our basis. So how are we going to do that? We're gonna try to fix everybody's head gates and measuring devices for them. We have a program, we enter into cost sharing. You want a partial plume and a new head gate, we'll help you buy it. We're not talking about fancy satellite, uplinks or just partial plumes. That's it. We'll buy it for you and we'll help you put them in. Junior water rights. What are we gonna do there? Well, we're gonna have to pay attention to what's going on both in the Colorado system and the rest of the state. We have to look at what the Basin implementation plan updates are. That's a technical process through what's known as the Basin Roundtable, where we get to look into a deep dive of what's going on in our water supply and our use. So if we're looking like we're very exposed from a water rights standpoint, we've got to take action and figure out how to fix that problem. We also have to look at what Chuck is doing in the negotiations of the operational guidelines for the entire Colorado River. Because I know we're not talking about compact curtailment right now, but for us, with junior water rights, compact curtailment and changing the operating rules are about the same risk for us. Also, legislative limitations. We don't have very many reservoirs, so we got to use them in concert in new ways. Before this week, 50% of the flow in the Yampa River to Fifth Creek Bridge was from an environmental release at a Stagecoach reservoir, which took advantage of House Bill 1157 to get it out, and our friends at the Colorado Water Trust stuff with do that. planning for climate change and drought, well, we talked about that. You've heard about soil moisture, stream flow monitoring, and new forecasting products. We need all of those. The other thing that is coming up very much is water quality. Our climate is changing our water quality. One was a pretty pristine basin. And the last thing we do with here is, this is a page out of what is the IWMP from the roundtable. And we work with ag users a lot, so I'm going to steal a phrase from ag users. On a big ranch, you need two kinds of horses to get a lot of work done. You need a couple show ponies, and you need a whole lot of work horses. And the show ponies are only worth their feed if they make life easier for the work horses. So a ton of work horses in the water world took 4 years to put together this integrated water management plan through the Basin Roundtable. This is our show pony right here. It's a very nice report. 4 years of work boiled down into about 18 pages, maybe. Is that about right, Kat? 18 pages? 25 pages. And these are all of our objectives right here, what we want to do. So we took 4 years of PhD level work, a dozen different studies, and boiled it down into 18 pages so we can help the workforces move forward with these very difficult projects. So please go to the Basin Roundtable website, take a look at it, and see what's there. I'm going to end there. I'm way over time, but I will take any questions we have. Yeah.
This microphone is, so, as we indicate, Ken can have to run off this work, but, are there questions for Andy? Yes.
One of the common complaints within the Colorado Basin, all the way to our basin, is that forecasts tend to lead to the optimistic side. And the test of time is that the optimism was not valid. How do you avoid that trap?
That's a great question, and we're going to answer it in a couple of ways. I'm going to first say, not all are optimistic anymore. I don't know if anyone's here recent brief. Who's the gentleman who's the head of the Bureau of Record Projects? He's the head forecaster. He's in Boulder, Colorado. I just heard presentation from at the Colorado Water Congress, and he's in charge of telling everybody how to need power and operate. He said, don't look at the most optimistic anymore. I think you all need to be following the worst case scenario all the way out 50 years. And that matches a lot with what reservoirs do. You know, as a reservoir manager, we always look at what is our worst case scenario. We can't always count on the big runoff. We have to plan for 2012. That's how we have to operate the reservoirs. We plan for 2012, hope for 2011. I think any small reservoir owner has done the same thing for a lot of years. And I think it's sort of a question of scale. When you feel you're too big to fail, then you start to look at the rosy outcomes. We're going to be fine. But if you know that there's equal chances of you being successful and failing every year, and that's going to have a big impact on a basin with little storage, you definitely pay attention to the worst case scenario.
The other, this is, I think that the other is about 50% of the flow. We haven't heard any discussion on planning process for that particular reason. It's probably for size, the waste of water in the state of Colorado. So could you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of you may have heard the saying on the End River, it starts from flat tops. It's made in the Park Range, which is up near Rat Ears, from the Powell, and then it gets doubled by the Elk River. And that's exactly true. That's right. So that river is one of the most productive, maybe top 3 in the nation per length, I think. And so one thing out there is a storage facility out there, Steamboat Lake. It's pretty big, but it's off the main stem right there. And what we've seen so far on the Elk River is one, it doesn't have that intense of agricultural production. There is some, but not a lot. A majority of the landscape up there is in public lands, either Forest Service, I think there's some state land up there. So to your point, what becomes really, really important is headwater watershed health planning. And the state forest, I think there's someone here from the state forest that has done a ton of work trying to get ahead of that. Maybe it's through the wildfire protection sort of avenue to get access to funds. But look at the whole health of the forest, because there's things like beetle kills that have a long-term effect on how much change the hydrology. There's increased susceptibility to wildfire, which could really change the hydrology up there. And then CWCB, I think, is about to release maybe this November, wildfire resilience study. I think that's what it's called, Chris Stern there. And they're mapping the entire state to see which watersheds, and not just which watersheds, which parts are most susceptible to wildfire now, so we can get ahead of it and get the technicians on the ground to go up there and take care of this headwater forest, make sure they're making healthy. Because that's what's driving this system. Okay, great. Thank you all very much. And hey, if anybody who wants to come to my board meeting, feel free. We're going to cover topics like inflation. And like that. Take about 5 hours. So thank you very much.
Thank you, those were all great. And you got a tough job. So, next I'd like to welcome, Kelly in from your, as I said, Kelly is the director for water policy in the Colorado Department of Water Resources. So she's going to give us a glimpse of what's going on at the state level from a really unique perspective of having come from the local. Kelly, please welcome.
Great. Hearing over there, thanks, hometown crowd, family, neighbors. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kelly Romero Katie. I do know a lot of you, but not all of you. I am the assistant director for water for Colorado's Department of Natural Resources. And then I recently took on a dual role of advising Governor Polis on water policy. So 2 jobs, very busy, don't say a lot. But I formerly worked locally. I was the water resources manager for the city of Steamboat Springs, and nearly all of my career was based in the Basin. So it's really interesting for me to step into this role for 2 reasons. One, I moved away from being more on the operations and science side of water management into more of the policy role. The other thing that's really interesting is that I have felt a little bit like a hobbit. Not just because I'm short, and I like each stretch. I feel like a hobbit is not the Shire as I step into the statewide role. And there's kind of new surprises, interesting people around every corner. It is a little bit of a challenging time for water. But this morning, I just want to briefly share with you some of the lessons that I have learned as I stepped out of my local role and into this broader statewide role. Lesson 1. Colorado has 9 interstate compacts. We talk a lot about Colorado, right? But the reality is Colorado is the headwaters for 18 states and of course the Republic of Mexico. That is a huge responsibility for Colorado to steward its water through our lands, from our mountains to our lands, to our streams, through our soil and our aquifers to other states. And we have lessons to learn from each of those interstate compacts. They all have varying degrees of complexity, the status of compliance, administration rules, etc. And for example, this picture here is of the South Platte River near Julesburg. Who has ever been to Julesburg? Oh, there we go. Great. It's outside of Nebraska border. It's not as far as you get from Steamboat. For some reason, since I took this job, I thought it would be really interesting in Steamboat, and I put 25,000 miles. I'm like, far because our water problems are only like 6 hours away. Actually, that was great the last week. Point being, South Platte River, the governed by the South Platte compact, very important, heavy administration on the South Platte. The governor of Nebraska made threats directly to our governor that he was going to build a project that could potentially impact our water users, so I have spent a lot of time out there. We also have really interesting things happening on the Rio Grande Basin, in the Republican River Basin. Who's ever heard of the Republican River Basin? Who's been there? Yeah, I've been there a lot, sure. It is one of the few river systems, it's not, it doesn't come out of the mountain, it's not snow driven. It's really, it's sort of a contained basin, they largely depend upon groundwater pumping there and basin for agriculture. All right, let's move on. Lesson 2, you can't manage what you can't measure. And Andy just covered this really well. I will say Colorado is known for a few things. We're known for our champagne powder. We're known for our craft beer. And we're known for our water nerds. Clearly. We pretty much invented water measurement up here in Colorado. And so we're pretty good at it. But we, and I think a lot of that stems from our obligations to our downstream states. We have to prove that we're delivering water, as we committed to in our interstate compacts. But measurement is important. It's important with measurement that we're honest about the margin of error. And then we're also really clear on why we are taking that measurement. You know, for example, Colorado has measurement rules on some of its other systems like the South Platte, in the Arkansas Basin, excuse me, in the Republican River Basin, and those rules require certain types of measuring devices or methods in place. And then Andy talked about measurement rules are being developed at the Basin right now. All of, having those measuring devices in place is really important for a few reasons. One, so your neighbor knows whether you're taking their water or not. So it's important for intra-state and state administration of water rights, but it's also important for us to be able to demonstrate that if we do have to reduce our use for some sort of compact administration reason, that we can do so. We have the infrastructure in place to do so. But water, I will say, it's also really important so that we can demonstrate that we truly are conserving water if we're going to put those conservation measures in place. I'm sure you're going to hear a bit from Chad about our system of storage in the Colorado River Basin. Unlike the lower Colorado River Basin states, we here in the upper basin don't have massive reservoirs like Lake Mead and Powell delivering water to us. I know you're all going to talk about this, but of course our water is stored in our soil and our snow. And we're not optimizing the use of the emerging technologies available to us to measure those reservoirs. And so I'm excited that at least we're beginning as a state to invest in some of that measurement. For Andy, the upper Yemen, you get a small water planning grant to stand up the flow moisture monitoring program up here to start with a pilot. And I'm really hopeful that really takes off across the upper basin. Also, $1.9 million is approved for the airborne snow observation work, which I know you're going to hear about a little bit later. So we're just getting started, but it's not enough. But there's more. But next lesson is that you've got it when it comes to managing a common pool resource like water, you've got to get the institutions right. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work of Dr. Eleanor Ostrom. She won the Nobel Prize. Okay, there's water there, not a conference. Got it. Of course, Dr. Stewart. I'm not in economics. I got a B in economics, so you all know, which I'm a nerd. But she wrote this book, Governing the Commons. She did a lot of work on how do we manage common pool resources in a way that we can avoid the tragedy of the commons. One thing I learned from studying her works was that it's really important to get the layers of your institutions right. Right. So in Colorado, water is a common pool resource. We all share it. It actually belongs to the people of Colorado, but you get a right to use it for the use of property. And that's not a bad word, really. No, it's not. And so it's really important to certain like enforcement mechanisms and institutions. And so in Colorado, you've got sort of this looming threat of the interstate compacts. If there's issues between states, it goes to the federal courts. And the next layer is the state. They will have its administration rules, making sure that within that basin, there's rules in place to ensure that we're meeting our downstream obligation. Then you move down to the conservancy district or conservation district level, where they've got the tools, the resources, and even the relationships to manage water resources at that level, at a basin level. And then you can move down to the groundwater districts or the ditch company. And then eventually you can move down to the individuals and neighbors. And really, each level has an enforcement mechanism from the Supreme Court ruling all the way down to shading each other at the coffee shop for stealing water. Point being, it's really important that we get those institutions right. And I will tell you that if it is working at the local level, if it's not broken, we don't want to fix it. The more you move up the chain, the harder it gets. All right, the next lesson that I have learned is that water planning goes fast when it's driven locally. So Colorado is ahead of the game on this after, as Andy mentioned, House Bill 1177, Water for the 21st Century Act was passed in 2005. And that bill stood up the 9 weeks of roundtables, which were spread out around Colorado. Each one consists of 20 or 30 individuals representing different interests within those spaces. And the reality is roundtables really bring folks together that otherwise would only see each other at weddings and funerals. But they get to see each other depending on how often they meet, month or every other month, to kind of share cross-pollinate ideas on water management. They don't have a regulatory role, but that sharing of information and making recommendations to the Colorado Water Plan is really critical role for these roundtables. And I know that other states in the West have really looked to us, the leader, in accomplishing that and doing it well. There's not enough seats on the roundtables for everybody to participate. Not everybody has the hours into the wait of the night to participate in meetings, but not everybody speaks the language. You know, these English is spoken, and people that speak other languages are impacted by water decisions. And so when Colorado with the update its water plan, so the first water plan was finalized in 2015. We're going through an update right now with the governor's staff in December of this year. We committed to really broadening out the tent of outreach, making sure that we were hitting all 64 counties and a lot of counties on the Eastern Plains to go hit. Making sure that we're translating the materials, that we're participating in events in our like nerdy water meetings. So it really has to broaden it to make sure that we harvest all of those technical and social data points that would set a vision for a water plan that has vibrant cities, thriving farms, healthy streams, and of course a healthy recreation and tourism economy. Oh, and by the way, actually, it's not too late to participate. The Colorado Water Plan draft is out right now. The public comment period closes September 30th. So if you go to engagecity.org, provide a comment, you can review the draft plan online. I highly recommend that you do that if you're interested. Oh, sorry. All right, the next lesson that I learned was that the water plan is going to sit on the shelf if we can't get any money to operationalize it. That's here. So Governor Powell signed bills in the last session that appropriated over $90 million for water projects and water quality program in this last session. And then an additional $20 million went to a large private reserve fund account, which the roundtable will make recommendations on how that money is spent. So the idea was let's get some seed money out there so that we can really start implementing the water plan, especially with all the federal funds that we expect to be hitting our way here soon with the infrastructure bill, the federal infrastructure bill, and then also with the IRA, with the Inflation Reduction Act. We are hoping, at least from infrastructure bill, we can get up to $1.2 billion or more from water for water projects and programs in Colorado, but a lot of those programs are competitive grant programs that really is going to be up to the local level to apply for that funding. I think the challenge, however, is that there is where our lands and our water are is usually in rural areas where there's not a lot of people. And so we recognize there is a real need to make sure that we are providing the resources for local communities to apply for funding. So this is my next lesson, which gets to that point. The fact that nothing will happen without our local champions. And these are a couple of folks that I had the opportunity to get to know her, but a couple of examples of a few. So last is Deb Daniel, she runs the Republican Water Conservation District, the right Senator Pete Simpson. He also runs the Rio Grande Water Conservation District. Deb's holding potatoes that were grown on Republican River groundwater there in the Republican River Basin, Eastern Plains, and Senator Pete Simpson is standing in the 10th field, my husband's like little pop is but being there working tirelessly to help help set up like a good water future for the next generation of farmers and managers in their communities. You all are local champions as well here in the Yampa Basin. And I think that's what I love about coming from this community is I learned lessons from you all and I'm able to kind of spot the local champions in these other communities that are doing this good work. But they need our help. And so we, Governor Powell signed and Senator Simpson sponsored a bill last session, House Bill 22-1379, which set aside $20 million for wildfire watershed mitigation plus local capacity building. So $2.5 million local capacity building grants, and $2.5 million for technical assistance to help local communities access infrastructure bill funding, write grants, build projects, and to navigate all of those challenges so that we can make sure we're getting as much of those resources on the ground in Colorado as we possibly can. All right, let's get close. How am I doing on time? Am I okay? So the next lesson is that healthy forests and watersheds are critical to all users. This is a picture of the Cameron Peak fire in 2020. I'm sure you're all aware 2020 was a horrendous, record-breaking fire year for Colorado. And of course, the water managers, that get their water from those watersheds that are impacted are still heavily involved in recovery. Andy, you talked about how important it is to try to get ahead of these fires. It's so expensive to recover and restore after the fire. And it's not that fire is bad, but fire is really tough when it burns up 200,000 acres across multiple watersheds. That gets really hard on water suppliers. They're dealing with debris flows, water quality issues, silting in their reservoirs, etc. And so they're trying to go back in after the fact to see what they can do to restore that landscape as quickly as possible. But what we really want to do is get ahead of that. How do we use fire to our advantage on a scale that isn't so catastrophic? How do we build healthy riparian corridors, whether it's through process-based restoration, promoting beaver, the actual beaver onto our landscape, which has been proven to be a good fire mitigation technique. Forest treatment, where do we need to go in and do some clearing or mastication, like was done at the fish creek plant here. And then also Andy mentioned the work of the Colorado Water Conservation Board, Chris Stern leading that effort, has been, and the wildfire ready watersheds work, which basically is looking to replicate or to do something similar to what Steamboat, the city of Steamboat, not Colorado Water did with the Fish Creek Basin here. We're looking at what actions can they take to make sure that their watershed is prepared for a wildfire or to minimize the impacts of that wildfire on the community's drinking water supplies. One other thing I just wanted to note is it's really important, of course, that our that science informs our strategies, our projects, and our policies. One little tip that I learned as I transitioned from more science to policy advisor is that the legislature is not the appropriate venue to debate science. And it's groups like this, like, I need you all to produce these little like nuggets of consensus that I can then feed to the legislature and other some legislators can write, very simple terms. So that we can have policies that are informed by science. All right, last one, so had to sneak in a picture of my so nothing to belabor the point that we're in a really tough place here in the West when it comes to water. Obviously, climate change is really impacting our lives, it's impacting the health of our streams. We are experiencing prolonged drought. We're experiencing record rain effects. We're experiencing interstate conflicts on our streams like we've never seen before. It's a tough time, but we cannot lose hope. And of course, I've got this picture up here for several reasons. One, like this and like what is hopeful about like the next generation. The other thing which makes why this picture is so helpful to me is this is when my husband was here. And I were camping with our little one up on just north of Europe. I think it was part of it. We found this awesome zebra dam and we're splashing around and like really fascinated by how incredible this zebra dam is. And like Nico, my little one, was little natural, was so curious about it, right? So I think that gives us hope. We have to continue to be curious and we have to like raise up the next generation of water professionals and scientists through water festivals. And so we got to do that. But the other piece is keeper. Oh my God, like they never lose hope. Like you pretty much we wiped them off the face of the West, right? Like took out 89% of their population to trapping and just getting rid of them. We thought they were a pain. Now we're like, oh wait, we need to back. Like we're just now realizing all of the ecosystem services that you provided to us. I mean, that's not why they're coming back. We also have to like give them a shout out for their persistence. I mean, how many times do they get blown out and go back in there and build again? So anyway, I will close with that. Oh, actually, no, I love to close with, and that's this. Wrapping it up, my Hobbit metaphor is this. I left the Shire, went out into the big state of Colorado, but I did not find a bunch of orcs in Mordor. Instead, I found shires a lot like my community. Each one is unique, of course, but there are shires and, like I said, local champions all across the state of Colorado. And I think that's what's like so cool about our state is that we are, I don't know, like there's just people really care about the lands, their communities, and their families. Across the state and water, it's just like the common thread that I do love together. So with that, and thank you for
We'll open your questions until we finish with Chuck and then we'll open it up to all the speakers. River Commission. It's really important to everybody, I'm sure. It's a big job. And we're really delighted that he's able to join us today. Not in person, he's a busy guy. We've got some other staff there like that. Some big meetings. Is he able to run the slide or are we gonna do that work? You're gonna run it. Okay, right.
Great. Can you hear me? Hello?
Chuck, I think we're now connected to you on audio.
All
Can you
right.
hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, excellent. I'll bring your talk up here, Chuck. This is Nathan. I can steer for you as you go through your talk.
Great. Really much appreciated. And thanks everyone for being patient with the remote presentation. My name is Chuck Cullum. I'm the Executive Director of the Upper Colorado River Commission. And formerly, I spent 25 years working in the Lower Basin for the state of Arizona and the Central Arizona Project. And I joined the UCRC in January. I'm looking for my next slide. Oh, wait, that's me. Dark. Sorry for the dramatic lighting. So again, my name is Chuck Cullum. I'm the Executive Director, and I moved to the Upper Basin to facilitate the collaboration and cooperation through the UCRC for the 4 Upper Division states of Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico, as well as with the United States. The Upper Colorado River Commission is a unique interstate agency who attempts to facilitate collaboration and cooperation among those 4 states and the U.S. in implementing the 1948 Upper Colorado River Compact. Both the compact and the commission are unique in the basin in that they are the means with which the Upper Basin works cooperatively to manage collectively the Colorado River supply that it shares among the Upper Basin states and with the Lower Basin in Mexico. It's also the vehicle through which the Upper Basin meets commitments in the 1922 Compact, which Kelly alluded to, and the 1944 Water Treaty with Mexico. Next slide. So I'm going to talk about 4 themes, things you need to know about the Colorado River. And we imbue the discussion of the Colorado River in all these complex nomenclature, terminology, the law of the river and all that. It's really pretty simple. Mass balance drives this system. Hydrology is the key first and foremost, and inflow equals outflow plus or minus storage. These aren't hard concepts, but we've built a whole Byzantine structure to manage the system based on mass balance. The second theme is history reflects episodic adaptive management to address shared risks, and I would say opportunity. The law of the river, that is the 1922 Compact up into the present, has been born out of conflict, and then folks come together and adapt to what's driving that conflict and come up with innovative, creative solutions. The third theme is that the river community moves towards shared values and cooperation. The fact that I'm presenting virtually to the Yampa watershed group is a reflection of the desire for local, regional, and basin scale to reflect the values, the shared values of sustainability, reliability, resiliency, and protecting the resources that we all share. And then the last theme that's important is scarcity, whether real or perceived, drives to a choice, an inflection point where we choose either innovation, again, that collaborative, cooperative approach, or conflict. We've taken, as a basin, we've taken both paths at different times. We're trying currently to find innovative solutions, and if those fail, then we will likely choose the other path of conflict. Like Kelly, I'm going to end on a hopeful note, but I do want people to understand that the scarcity, the drought that we feel today is driving innovation. The question is, can we innovate? Can we create new solutions fast enough to avoid what I would believe is a destabilizing conflict. Next slide, please. So I'm going to let this sink in for a minute. I'm a big Disney fan, and cinema is the modern vernacular. And so when I'm troubled, I look to the great sage of water management, Olaf, from Frozen 2. Not Frozen 1. Frozen 2 is a water movie on par with Chinatown and the Mulatto Greenfield. But you have to see it. Anyway, so in Frozen, Olaf shares 3 critical points that I think are relevant today. Water has memory. I'm going to hopefully demonstrate that that's a true statement. Second, the past is not what it seems. We have built in this basin myths, legends, and a culture around things that may not be exactly factual. And then the third thing is, in a crisis, you may not be able to solve all the problems that you're confronted with, but you can do the next right thing. So I'll talk about that as we move forward. Next slide, please. So let's talk about mass balance. You heard some of the sciencey, researchy, and that's meant in the best way. The science that drives our understanding and should inform decision making. When we talk about mass balance, I believe water has memory because of the reliance on storage in this system. Hydrology is first and foremost. Snow matters. The timing of snow matters. The timing of the melt matters. Temperatures matter. And in the Colorado River system, all of that is highly variable. And over the past, in this century, the past 22 years, it's been extremely variable. The other element is inflow equals outflow. I keep hitting on this point. It's a mass balance driven system. And once we deplete storage, then it's inflow equals outflow. Next slide, please. So what you see is on the upper left is what's called a snow water equivalent chart. So on the left, on the y-axis, it's the measurement of the amount of moisture in the snowpack over the snow accumulation and runoff season from a 30-year average, which is the purple line. And I've drawn out a couple of example years, 2021, which is in dark blue, 2022 in green, 2018 in red, and 2012 in teal, I think. So what this graph shows is the accumulation of snowpack and then the melt from how much water's in the snowpack perspective. What I want to illustrate for you is that if we begin to compare the height, the peak snow to the actual runoff, that's what those arrows are pointing to. If we look at 2012, which is a very low runoff year, it's in the lower quartile. It is almost the lowest of all these that selected snowpack years. If we compare 2012 to 2018, 2012, we had an early peak snow in February and a melt beginning in March through April. That generated a runoff of about 5 million acre feet, unregulated inflow to Lake Powell. The red year, 2018, 2018 had less snow, but it almost matched the 2012 year because the snow came later. The peak snow was in March and April, and the runoff didn't hit till May. So that window of a delayed runoff from April to May propped up a terrible snow year so that it was on par with 2012. If we then look at 2021, 2021 is the second lowest on record. We peaked in March, and again, when we started to melt in April, that's what generated what should have been a 7 or 8 million acre foot year, and it came in right around 4. So the snowpack matters, the timing of the runoff matters, and temperatures matter. Next slide, please. So again, a Stephen King reference, the Spooky twins from The Shining. We've referred to these as the Las Niñas, and the forecast is a La Nina for 2023. As I indicated, in mass balance drives this system, the snowpack matters. April is a key month for runoff efficiency. If it's cool and wet in April, then even with a mediocre snowpack, we can have a relatively efficient runoff. If it's hot and dry, then we lose a lot of that runoff to soil moisture and early ET. In addition, fall and spring temperatures influence runoff and generate what's called a soil moisture deficit. Hot, dry, fall and spring suck moisture out of the runoff. You have to repay your soil moisture debt to get water into the streams. And I'm going to pivot next about water availability in the upper basin drives and significantly influences uses in the upper basin, which is very different than the lower basin. Next slide, please. So this is not an easy graph, and I apologize. I just want you to think about trends. So the x-axis are years 2019 through this year. The y-axis is depletions in thousands of acre feet. So if we look at the orange bar, the orange bars are the lower basin of which includes Nevada, California, Arizona, and Mexico. And we're talking about depletions. Depletions are different than consumptive use because of the way reclamation accounts for water in the basin. So depletions mean evaporation from the main stem reservoirs in the lower basin. That's Lake Mead, Lake Havasu, and Lake Mojave, as well as losses to transmit water from those reservoirs to uses. In the lower basin, since 2019, the trend, even in drought, has been upward from about 9.4 million acre feet in 2019 to about 9.9 million acre feet in 2022. In the upper basin, where if we use the same accounting methodology of depletions, losses, and uses, the trend has been different. The trend has been downward because of the lingering and persistent effects of drought. So in 2019, we're following a relatively normal year in 2018. So the upper basin depleted about 4.7 million acre feet, 4.6 in 2021. Because of the second lowest runoff year on record, 2022 was about 4.5. 2021, we dropped about 900,000 acre feet because of the extreme dryness and the timing of that dryness in 2021. Almost a million acre feet, about 25% reduction relative to the prior year. We expect that 2022 in the upper basin will be on par with 2021. So the upper basin is reacting to the water supply that's available. The lower basin is depleting storage because it's available. Everyone's operating within the rules. It's just the lower basin hasn't reacted to the declining storage at the same pace that the upper basin reacts to the annual available supply. Next slide, please. Again, you probably can't see the graphs. I want to talk briefly about the built system in the Colorado River, the elegant infrastructure that we all rely on. It's Lake Powell and Lake Mead. Lake Powell is at the Arizona-Utah border at the head of the Grand Canyon. Lake Mead is at the Arizona-Nevada border at the mouth of the Grand Canyon. Today, well, Monday, Lake Powell was 25% capacity. This is the second largest reservoir in the United States. It can store 25 million acre feet. Today, it has about 5.6 million acre feet at elevation 3530. Downstream, Lake Mead, the largest storage facility in the US, the largest reservoir with a capacity of about 26 million acre feet, is currently at 28% storage, 7.2 million acre feet, and at elevation 1044. The graphs reflect the next 2-year forecast. Blue is actual. Red, green, and dark green are different forecast scenarios. You see that they trend largely downward for Lake Powell. That's the upper graph. And for Lake Mead, the forecast is largely downward to critically low reservoir elevations. Given the pace of uses in the lower basin and the pessimistic forecast for hydrology, we expect more of the same, declining storage. Next slide, please. Great. So I just want to talk very briefly. We're going to go quick through the law of the river. It's born out of conflict. That history isn't what it seems. The compact, the 22 compact, is a really interesting document. It's super short. You can read it in 30 minutes. The picture is the folks who negotiated it, signing the document on November 24th, 1922. Future President Herbert Hoover is seated at the table. Colorado's water hero, Delph Carpenter, is behind Hoover, leaning into the future. Arizona's negotiator to the left is Norvell. He is leaning away from history. Anyway, that's supposed to be funny. It's a compact that was generated out of a lawsuit from California against the world. California was planning to take all of the Colorado River water for itself in 1918. Colorado said, whoa, cool your jets. We need an agreement or we're just going to litigate this in the Supreme Court. And that's this idea of promoting interstate comity with a T, and the commitments for equity and collaboration. It also recognized the role of Mexico and created space for agreements with tribes. Next slide, please. We have a treaty with Mexico, which guarantees delivery of 1.5 million acre feet to the Republic of Mexico. It also was generated due to looming conflict between the US and Mexico because we were building dams upstream, and Mexico believed that they could be starved out, so to speak, of a water supply. They needed to resolve this conflict and negotiated the 1944 Water Treaty, which is innovative for a number of reasons. It has sharing of risk and water supply opportunity. It created a binational organization called the IBWC, the International Boundary and Water Commission, to implement the treaty and to support continued collaboration between the U.S. and Mexico. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, I can't see the, oh, there you are. I just want to make sure I'm keeping up. Right, okay. So then that leads us to the 48 Compact signed by President Truman and representatives of Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. It was necessary for the 4 states to reach agreement on how they were going to share water to facilitate the Colorado River Storage Project Act, or CRISP, which was the path to build the what are called the initial units, Glen Canyon Dam for Lake Powell. The picture here is the construction of Flaming Gorge on the green, the Aspinall unit on the Gunnison in Colorado, and Navajo on the San Juan. It created the UCRC, which is this really interesting, I think, a very cool organization to the extent that water policy can be cool. But it's a way for the 4 states to work together and avoid conflict. So now I would like to pivot into fake news. Next slide, please. So there are reports that the Upper Basin is not doing stuff to adapt and respond to the current crisis on the Colorado River. I'm here to dispel those myths and share with you facts. As Kelly said, we need to use best available science and facts to inform decision-making. Currently, today, Upper Basin water use has declined because of significant, meaningful investment at the municipal level, at the local level, at the state level. All 4 upper division states, cities across the upper basin states are implementing best management practices, including outdoor water use restrictions and limiting water schedules, landscape ordinances, the removal of non-functional turf, water reuse and recycling incentives, rebates for water-wise landscaping, tiered rate structures, and coordination between development and water planning. These are important steps that are creating local resiliency. The upper division states are also investing in irrigation conservation. Utah, for example, has appropriated $70 million to create a fund to optimize irrigation efficiency in Utah. You heard that Colorado is investing in watershed health. New Mexico is in the San Juan Chama project, piping open canals and replacing or lining canals to reduce seepage losses. There are irrigation efficiency projects across the upper basin that include replacing flood irrigation with pivots, drip lines, gated pipe, and improving diversion and diversion management. In addition, in Wyoming, they are seeing a reduction in industrial use by managing blowdown or cooling water in electric generating plants. Next slide, please. Here are some additional facts. Utah, the fastest growing state in the US per the 2020 census, their per capita water use has declined 20% since 2000. They are the first state in the country that offers a state-funded water-wise landscape rebate, meaning they're paying for turf removal from St. George to Ogden. So across the state. Colorado, despite a population growth of about 1.3 million, the Front Range water use has declined by 34% since 2000. New Mexico, Albuquerque has reduced per capita use to about 128 gallons per capita per day. That's total. That's not residential. That's the whole thing. Santa Fe is has the lowest GPCD of any major city in the basin, including Las Vegas. They routinely have total gallons per capita per day below 95 GPCD, despite a 33% increase in population. Wyoming has been implementing a number of water conservation efforts in Cheyenne, and their industrial use sector has water use declines of 10%. I'm almost done. Next slide, please. So people say the Upper Basin isn't doing stuff. The Upper Basin is the only group that has responded directly and in writing to the reclamation's request to take additional action to reduce Colorado River use. They put together a 5-point plan. That plan is being implemented. It's important to keep in mind that that implementation has to be tied to actions in the lower basin. Our water use plans will not be effective to address the needed reductions unless the Secretary takes action in the lower basin. We are doing our part in the Upper Basin. Next slide, please. One more from Olaf. I know y'all were waiting. Change is on the horizon. We need to lean into it and embrace it. Many of us, like Olaf's, wish it could be this way forever, and yet change is mocking us with her beauty. We have an unstable climate right now. The management schemes are stressed. We need change in this basin. The Upper Basin, meaning basin-wide, the Upper Basin is doing its part. Colorado is a leader through your water planning processes that you heard about, the roundtables, the water plan. Colorado is one of the few states in the basin where there's a formalized structure for engagement for watershed, local, regional collaboration. And I think you should be applauded for it. My last slide is, so hopefully we're on the last slide. Right. So what does the future look like? I believe that we need to bring water uses in balance with the available supply. We need to bring depletions in balance with how much water is available. We cannot deplete storage. If we continue to deplete storage in this basin, it is at the cost to environmental, water reliability, and recreation and hydropower resources. The only way to get there, in my opinion, is to build a resilient, adaptable, implementable, sustainable, and equitable future. By the way, that spells RAISE, if you want an acronym. The lower basin needs to reduce their uses. The upper basin needs room to adjust upwards or downwards, depending on water supply availability, and have flexibility for innovative management to firm and build reliability for all the uses in the upper basin. With that, thank you. I appreciate your willingness to listen to a remote presentation. And I wish I could be in Steamboat with you guys.
Thank you, Chuck. So,
He's not there.
We have commitments to either Kelly or. I can run out of the lots of information. This is Ken Brenner. I'm with the Water Insurance District for the great information this morning. Check. We had a Colorado Water Congress meeting. So Bureau of Reclamation represented that the forecast for water use was pretty grim. And I'm sure you're familiar with the numbers, but with two key assumptions, one that we would have average precipitation this winter, and the second one that we would maintain minimum power generation in the two reservoirs Powell need. So that would be 2.7 million acres of water. How does that break you out? How do you find the economy?
So is there any way you could use a microphone or something? I can't hear the question. I apologize.
He was actually. Let's see. Can he only hear? I'm sorry. Can you come up and just speaking of that? It's a really important question. Yeah.
Chuck, Ken Brenner, with the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District. Can you hear me better now?
Perfect, thanks.
Oh, great. Hey, we just had the Colorado Water Congress presentation a couple of weeks ago here in Steamboat Springs, and the Bureau of Reclamation did a summary report of forecasting this next water year, and using two key assumptions: one, that we would maintain minimum power generation in both Powell and Meade, and that we would have average precipitation. Obviously huge assumptions, but that we would be 2.7 million acre feet of water short for this just coming year. How does that strike you? How are we going to be able to navigate that?
So what with the Upper Basin states, well, let me say it this way: 6 out of 7 states have suggested, have urged, have cajoled the United States to assess seepage and evaporation losses to the lower basin in the same manner that they are assessed in the upper basin. In the upper basin, each state is charged evaporation losses and conveyance losses as part of their Colorado River entitlement. In the lower basin, it just comes out of storage. It's just they ignore the fact, the scientifically proven fact that evaporation happens everywhere. That loss in the lower basin, we calculate and Reclamation calculates, is about 1.2 million acre feet. So if they just did that, they would be 60% closer to their goal of a minimum of 2 million acre feet. That makes the additional conservation actions easier, meaning if you only need 800, it's easier to get to 800,000 than 2 million. And with IRA and bill funding money, there should be enough willing participants for conservation in the lower basin. We would also encourage Mexico to participate. They share the benefit of that storage in Lake Mead. So we are encouraging the lower basin to develop their agreements on pace with the upper basin, and for Reclamation to use best available science, acknowledge climate change and the fact that evaporation is a thing, and assess that in the lower basin equitably, which means the same as in the upper basin.
Thank you, Chuck. Marty?
Hi, Chuck. Marty Ralph here from Scripps Oceanography.
Hey.
I want to ask a question for both you and Kelly, and it really has to do a bit with the future as in terms of young people and early career people. What kind of hope and recommendations would you offer for them to be able to pursue to help make a difference in dealing with these super challenging problems that likely couldn't be much more important than anything other than our health. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you mind if I go first? Okay. I'm just gonna go for it. Watch Frozen 2. And I believe that there is a wide open lane for young, interested. I think everybody has at least for me, I believe everyone has an innate interest in water and water resources. There's something magical about a live stream. It's life-sustaining, it's meaningful work. And looking around at the conference I'm at, there's a great wide lane for young people to move forward. I mean, like the photo of the compact negotiators, they're a bunch of sort of mid to late career folks. I think there's going to be a tremendous opportunity for people interested in climate science, in policy, in aquatic biology, in economics to add value in this system. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So when I was growing up, my dad used to always teach me that the power is not in the hands of the people, it's in the hands of the involved people. And what I love about water in Colorado is that anyone can get involved. Like it has blown me away how accessible all levels of government are in Colorado. It has blown me away how effective the Basin roundtable process has been, and you don't have to be like sitting on one of these roundtables to participate. Sometimes they're a little boring and dry, but still, if you go, eventually you learn the language, get to know folks, just get involved, get educated. It's surprising how much you can really influence it if you have the time. The second piece is seek out a mentor. Make sure that you find somebody that's doing good work that you admire, to know them. Like, and the reason I say that is I did that. People also, recognize that maybe I just need a little nudge to move forward in my career in water. So really build those relationships with those that learn from or emulate, and they'll be surprised at how much they want to advocate for you as you move up to your water career.
Hi, my question is for Kelly. You mentioned communicating science to legislators. What is the biggest challenge that they don't understand the urgency or the concepts? What is the biggest challenge that they're saying?
Well, I think I can speak for you because the legislature's interim committee on water resources management is meeting right now, so not coming here. No, I'm just kidding. Like legislators, it is a part-time job, poorly paid. I mean, a part-time job is really year round. And there's so much expected of them, and they have all this stuff, right? And they also have to run campaigns and for constituents. So part of it is the mandate. So really, like, take a bunch of different, whatever theories or technical data and distill that into information and policy. So the more that we can do that as the science community, and then kind of come to a point where like, hey, this is, we've all come to this, the experts, consensus on this, and really think that pulling this policy lever will make a difference. That's what I think our decision makers are looking for.
Thank you, Kelly. I think our section economy is just about up. And so, one more real quick question. Sure. Just because it's the first section of the morning.
All right, yes, we're live. Okay, so for the past 5 years, I've been flushing my own toilet with back. Take the bucket, step on the drain, fill up the thing at the shower. You got flush water for the next 2 to 3 days. Pretty easy, but it's not going to happen for anybody but a batch. So
what's it gonna take for legislation to make it possible for codes to change so that plumbers can put in capture tanks under every tub, capture every gallon of water that you shower with, and what color? It's not that hard. Can we do that?
Chuck, do you mind if I take that one? Can you hear me? I'll take that. Here's what gets really tricky about indoor water conservation. Particularly on the front range where they've got Kansas water coming from the Colorado system over. That water can be used to exchange the right use, right? So the South Platte and Rankin water is having more times. That indoor water use ends up either being reused for municipal use or agriculture, et cetera. And so we were gonna really make our gains when it comes to improving efficiency. And I don't need to dismiss indoor, like, because conservation is an important tool, but it's not really where the jump is for us when it comes to conservation, because of indoor use, maybe 5 is actually consumed. That's not to say that we don't want residential water use only 5% of the goal. No, that's how much of it gets considered. So if the water doesn't fly outdoors on our land speeds, that's where it depends on where you're at. Usually around 40%. So really, I think there's a pretty strong focus on how can we tackle water conservation and outdoor use, and then also addressing water loss. Meters or again, we want to use regulations, I don't need to see that, but that's not going to be what's going to really save the Colorado River system. Chuck, exactly if I'm wrong.
I think that's a good thing to think about, but we really do need to go to our break because we gotta be back in 12 minutes, so I don't want to come short that before we are. So please thank our speakers this morning. And we'll be back ready to go at 11 o'clock. Thank you.